The soft music had hardly died away when the great doors at the rear of the wedding hall burst open. Exclamations of shock filled the air. Every head turned. Every smile was frozen. Even time seemed to hold its breath for a moment. Framed by the golden glow of the hallway stood a small boy, no older than 9 years old, in a white shirt that was rumpled, his vest half-buttoned, and his hair just slightly tousled, as if he'd sprinted all the way here. But it wasn't his sudden arrival that silenced the crowd. It was what he carried, a fragile newborn baby wrapped in a thin, faded blanket, held tightly in his trembling arms. The boy's voice broke the silence, shaking yet resolute. He pointed his finger at the groom standing at the altar and cried, "You're the reason my baby sister doesn't have a home." A collective gasp swept across the crowd. The bride's smile vanished as her hands instinctively clutched her veil. The groom Nathan, Pierce froze, his confidence collapsing under the weight of the boy's words. The hall, once joyous, was suddenly suffocating with tension and disbelief. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the courage to tell the truth, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Real Kindness Story, where true stories of the heart remind us what truly matters. The guests stood still, torn between pity and shock. Nathan, a young, polished man in a perfectly tailored navy suit, had spent the morning telling everyone this was the happiest day of his life. But now, pale and hollow-eyed, he looked like a man whose entire world was crumbling. The bride, Claire, was frozen in her lace gown, watching her dream wedding unravel before her eyes. The boy took a few tentative paces forward towards the altar. His name was Oliver, but nobody knew it as yet. Behind him, a few late arrivals peeked through the open door, not knowing whether to interfere or just stand and witness the sight of something so sacred and painfully true unraveling before them. The soft echo of Oliver. Little shoes against the marble floor gave away his presence. The baby stirred in his arms and let out a whimper. His lip quivered, but his gaze never wavered. The truth he carried had weighed on his heart for days now, a truth spoken by his mother with tears, one he could not rid himself, no matter how hard he tried. His mother, Grace, had once cleaned offices for Nathan before his engagement to Claire well into the night. Sometimes she'd bring little Oliver along because she couldn't afford a babysitter. At first, Nathan had seemed kind, offering her rides home, warm coffee, and gentle smiles. That kindness turned into something else, something Grace would never want to talk about. It wasn't until her health began to fade and the baby in her arms became a living, breathing reminder of both love and betrayal that she told Oliver the truth. She'd begged Nathan for help, to at least acknowledge the child he'd fathered, but he'd cut ties, blocked calls, erased her from his perfect new life, one built on secrets, polished vows, and smiling photograph. Grace had tried to stop Oliver from coming, but the boy's heart couldn't bear to see his mother fading away while the man responsible celebrated under crystal chandeliers. So he ran, clutching his baby sister close, guided only by the distant sound of church bells and wedding music that mocked the pain he carried. Oliver's voice cracked when he finally spoke again. "My mom's in the hospital," he whispered, his eyes shining. "She told me to tell you. She forgives you, even if you don't love us." The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. The whole hall stood still, hearts pounding, eyes fixed on the boy who had just shattered the illusion of a perfect day. There was dead silence in the room, where guests shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, their eyes riveted to the boy and the baby he held, some covering their mouths and others whispering quiet prayers under their breath. Claire froze at the altar, white-faced and quivering. Her eyes darted from Oliver to Nathan, imploring him to say something to refute it, explain it away. But Nathan didn't say a word. His hands shook at his sides and his jaw was clenched. The former sparkling charm in his eyes now glimmered with tears as the truth he had kept buried for so long finally clawed its way to the surface. Slowly, he stepped forward. The guests parted to let him through, their eyes wide with shock, disbelief, and something else, heartbreak. The music had long since faded, replaced by a silence that felt heavier than thunder. Nathan's mind was racing as images of the past flashed before him. Late nights at the office, Grace's laughter echoing down the halls, her eyes shining bright with warmth, until they were replaced by those of guilt and sadness. He had told himself he wasn't ready to be a father, that he had much to build yet, much to prove. He buried the truth beneath ambition, comfort, and the illusion of control. But as he now beheld a boy standing there, a child he had abandoned, and a baby girl he had refused to acknowledge, shame cut through his gut like a knife. He couldn't run anymore. Nathan sank onto his knees. He opened his mouth to say something, but his voice cracked beneath the weight of it all. His entire world was crashing down, vows and decorations and dreams, into silence. Claire took a step back. Her heart pounded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "Is it true?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Nathan didn't respond. He didn't have to. It was written across his face. In an instant, the whole hall was collapsing. The exquisite arch at their backs, the refined music, the life they were supposed to be building together, all crashed into the raw, real, and unforgettable. Then a small sound broke the silence, the soft coo of the baby in Oliver's arm. Oliver's expression softened. He had not come to ruin a wedding, nor had he come for revenge. All he wanted was the truth, for someone to listen, for someone to finally care. His mother's words still echoed in his heart. People make mistakes, Ollie, but sometimes they need to see the pain they caused before they can make it right. Nathan reached out a trembling hand and touched the baby's tiny hand. She stirred, wrapping her fingers instinctively around his. A single tear slid down Nathan's cheek. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Oliver stood silent. His eyes were full but steady. For the first time, the weight inside his small chest began to lift. He didn't know if this man could ever make things right, but seeing his regret was enough to let the truth breathe. Nathan turned to Claire. He expected anger, rejection, for her to walk out without a word, but instead, she looked at the baby, then at Oliver. She took a long, trembling breath. "Bring your mother home," she said quietly. "We'll help her." Her voice wasn't loud, but her words echoed like a prayer in every heart in the room. Nobody clapped, nobody cheered. They simply stood in place, moved not by drama, but something far, far more powerful: forgiveness. Nathan nodded, the tears streaming freely now. The guests around him bowed their heads, overcome not by scandal, but by the weight of compassion. Oliver didn't smile, but there was peace in his eyes, the kind that only comes when truth is no longer hidden. If this story moved you, please take a minute to like, share, and subscribe to Real Kindness Stories, where true compassion and courage still matter. Before you go, comment below, would you forgive someone who hurt you if they truly regretted it? As soft music returned and the guests began to file out slowly, Nathan didn't walk back to the altar. Instead, he walked down the aisle, side by side with Oliver, not toward a perfect future, but toward something far more meaningful: redemption. In his arms, the baby stirred again, safe, seen, and held, perhaps for the first time in a very long while. And in that moment, surrounded by shattered expectations and mended hearts, a man who once ran from love finally found it waiting in the arms of a child who never gave up.